internet, McAvoy or Stewart, I find these parallel universes so confusing. This is the only podcast about movies. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I'm breaking the fourth wall. My name is Shahir Dowd. I'm talking directly to you in this podcast, the only podcast about movies. About Deadpool.
Oh, there you go. That's right. We're doing Deadpool. I'm not sure. That was like a third and a half wall you kind of did.
3x3, it was a 9 wall.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay.
Yes, Deadpool. The moment has come. First Marvel movie, I know it's Fox, of the year. And one of... Yeah.
Ant-Man? No, yeah, it was 2016 now. Yeah, I guess
Welcome to the future. It's now. Again, pardon my voice. I'm coming down a little something, so if I don't sound as dreamy as I normally do, please.
I think you sound dreamier.
Oh, good. So I'll stay.
Low, husky voice. Yeah. I think you should bring it on every time you do
I'll just start smoking.
Yeah. Drink a little whiskey.
So, Deadpool is here. And my first thing in my notes is actually the words "fuck yes." Now that
do you describe any other movie as "it's here"? You know, like there's so monumentous the way you're describing this movie right now. It's like,
well, there's a lot of reasons, Shahir. And actually, let's get into that first. So this movie, for those of you who do or do not know, is sort of, well, it's Ryan Reynolds' passion project, and he's been trying to make it happen for the better part of 10 years.
Right.
He obviously played Deadpool or Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Sorry.
And they completely butchered the character in there. The first scene of him when he's young and just Wade Wilson and a mercenary is actually quite good. But then obviously when he becomes the sewed mouth shut, katanas in his arms,
do they explain that? Why they did that? Given that, like, as far as everything, now I'm not the biggest Deadpool.
Sure.
I don't know much about Deadpool, but like the thing about him is his sense of humor. Do they ever explain why they did that?
They tried to. I think their excuse was that Wade Wilson, like, they were giving him, it was dumb on a million different levels, because he had a pool of all the mutants' powers, like he gave him Cyclops' eyes and Nightcrawler's teleport by the end of it in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Is that canonical? Is that
no?
Okay.
And so he becomes a pool of all of these powers, and then he's a Deadpool. I don't fucking
So they just
know.
made it up.
They made it up, and it's funny. You take the one enjoyable thing about a character being that he's mouthy,
yeah,
and you take that away,
and you completely remove that. That seems baffling to me. That movie, I watched. That movie came out, and there was like this cut that got out where they hadn't finished the visual effects. And I somehow managed to watch that. I don't pirate movies, but somehow that ended up in my possession, so I watched it, and. You know, the visual effects weren't done and they looked terrible, obviously. Then I watched the real version and it looked almost worse. That final scene with Deadpool on top of the big missile silo.
There was a nuclear stack.
It looked horrible. It was like, I think it's the worst visual effects in a modern film.
Maybe.
It looked like The Room bad.
Yeah. So Ryan Reynolds obviously did not like the treatment of the character that he really, really likes. And to be honest, as far as
would he?
As far as a superhero, the role that he was born to play, obviously Green Lantern didn't hit. But again, I don't think he made a great Hal Jordan to begin with. I also don't think that movie was particularly good.
No.
But this is sort of so what happened, Shahir, and I don't know if you kind of know the story of it, was that they've been trying to make it, just not hitting. Everyone said no. Then they made I forget on whose dime, maybe even Fox commissioned it, but it was a CG sort of trailer where Ryan Reynolds did the voice and the mocap. It's basically the beginning scene when from this movie when he's sitting on the railing and leaps into the cars and the whole highway sequence.
Yeah. I actually saw that test reel when they released it because I didn't have like a vested interest in Deadpool.
Right.
And I watched that and I thought that was pretty cool.
Pretty neat.
Yeah.
So they did that, and then I think Fox said no. And they said no one will ever do this. And then lo and behold, somehow it got leaked on the internet.
Yeah.
And everyone who loves this character collectively fucking lost their minds and basically petitioned, and then this movie got greenlit because of basically fans screaming that they wanted it. Which is always a really nice sort of story to hear, like when that actually happens. And then it just sort of, so that's the first step as to why I'm like, oh my God, it's finally here.
Do you think though that I mean, while I believe that is the story, part of me goes, that is really great marketing to a particular audience.
Sure, but the fact that I don't think any studio is smart enough to do or cares this much about Deadpool to do a 9 or 8 year game.
Yeah, like that is a long call. That is a long con.
They don't give a shit enough.
Yeah.
They're too busy on other things. But then, well, speaking of the marketing, that's another reason why I'm like, oh my God, it's here. The marketing for this film has made it feel like an event. And one thing I will say about this movie, and I think it's obvious that I liked it, it's not as big of an event, the film itself, as everything leading up to it has sort of made it out to be. That's fine, but it's not. So, but the marketing to this movie is some of the best I've seen for any film in a long time. There was an interview with Ryan Reynolds who was talking about how he was very excited about it because when they start presenting it to marketing companies, normally some are like, I'll take this or maybe or whatever. Marketing companies just kept coming to them because the edict was, because it's Deadpool and he's sort of a human cartoon and he breaks the fourth wall, they could do anything. So they basically had their choice of people to advertise this thing. I mean, everything from all of the holiday themed stuff that Ryan Reynolds has done. He did a breast cancer awareness thing. He even did the Halloween thing with the kids.
And he killed Mario Lopez.
Yeah, he killed Slater because the whole PG-13 or R debate.
Yeah.
And then even the billboards, there's one that made it look like a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Or just a romance movie.
Yeah.
With him
and Monica Baccarina.
Morena?
Yeah.
Morena Baccarina. I can never
Morena Baccarina.
Hey, Macarena. No,
Yeah.
she's wonderful. And then they even had the billboard with the emojis that I thought was hilarious. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. I tried to stay away from marketing.
It was the skull. It was in LA, I think. It was the skull, a poo, and then L. So Deadpool.
Yeah.
And then after that, like 2 weeks later, another one down the highway, I guess, just said skull pool L. Because, they spelled out the emojis. They spelled it in letters. So just shit like that. And he's been everywhere. That's why I think it's
an event.
It's an event because the fan base made it one. Now, what we got, we're going to talk about right now. I feel like I've been rambling. Shahir,
I'll read out the IMDb plot line just for anyone who wants to catch up on Deadpool. Again, I'm aware of Deadpool. And I think my only knowledge of him comes from a Marvel versus Capcom video game where he was kind of like the funny character who had a lot of quips, and he was weird because he had guns and katanas.
Swords,
and that's about as much as I know about him. A former special forces operative turned mercenary is subjected to a rogue experiment that leaves him with accelerated healing powers, adopting the alter ego Deadpool.
That's fair.
That's fair. It's more succinct than some of the IMDb synopses that we've come across. I went back and watched a lot of the marketing that was done after the film, and I agree. I think the marketing for this film is excellent. It's if you're going to get people to see a movie, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and you make sure your main star loves it.
Yeah, you make sure everyone seems invested in this film. What was a really strange thing for me because I found a lot of the jokes I could see why they were funny, but I didn't find myself laughing a hell of a lot. There was one or two lines that kind of landed for me, and I was like, ah, ha, ha. But on the whole, I kind of felt like, yes, this is funny, but I can also see the writing here. And here's the thing: is I think this is a great character. I think Deadpool as a character is great, and I think Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is great. And I think the way this movie tries to push the boundary as far as what you can and can't say in a superhero film is great. I just wish he was in a better film. I think it suffers, this fourth wall breaking that that Deadpool does in this film is obviously canonical to the character. It's part, and then that's my toilet paper word of the day today, by the way, canonical.
Look at you.
I know. I spend too much time in the toilet. But the that fourth wall breaking is great. It's really fun. It's interesting. It serves very little purpose in this movie, and the movie itself is pretty much what you expect from a Marvel superhero film. If this was any other character in a Marvel superhero film, this would be a C- movie.
Sure. Yeah. No, 100%. And something that's interesting, sort of about, and I know you're not familiar with the sort of the origins of Deadpool, and I'm not crazily myself. I know the broad strokes. The character was created, and I forget the guy's actual name, but he was created in the 90s, but back when like they were this guy
Rob
and
Liefeld, Fabian Nizia.
It was drawing a ton of books, and he created some characters, and Deadpool was basically just a ninja who could heal like Wolverine and was a mercenary. He was the Punisher Wolverine and actually a ripoff of Slade Wilson, who from the DC books, Deathstroke.
Okay.
So
I can see that. It's Deathstroke with more humor.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a direct, I believe, and I'm not quite sure about this, and I think people go back and forth. I think it was the creator's direct fuck you to DC for something.
Right.
So Slade Wilson versus Wade Wilson.
Right. Okay. I can see that. I can see that.
So there's a whole thing there. But again, 90s character, every trope you could think of. Mercs were cool, Punisher was cool, Ninja was cool, Spider-Man was cool, let's paint him red, like, like that sort of thing, whatever. Then Deadpool kind of went into obscurity because he's just another 90s mishmash character. But then they brought him back as this sort of human cartoon sort of thing where he knew he was in a comic book and it made him fun and whatever. And something that was interesting, I have never been a huge fan of the Deadpool books.
Right.
I think he, again, works as a great supporting character. You put him with other superheroes and other things, or like the big Marvel arcs. Like I remember during the Dark Avengers time, he gets assigned to go kill Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin, who takes control of basically S.H.I.E.L.D. He becomes the top cop of America. Yeah. And so someone hires Deadpool to go kill Norman Osborn. And that book, to me, because there's so many players, super fun.
Okay.
But I've never been one. And another thing, he didn't become, at least in my opinion, very popular until they paired him up with another X-Men, Cable. There was a series, Deadpool and Cable, which eventually they referenced. So he works great playing off of other characters.
Right.
And so we know that sort of going in. It's something that actually I'm going to give a shout out to another movie, not podcast, because as we know, we're the only ones. But a YouTube channel, Movie Bob is his name, and he gives brilliant commentary on a lot of films. He also does a thing called Really That Good, which he takes an old film and like really digs deep into like, why is Ghostbusters good? Why do we love this? It's a very non-snarky look at film that we all seem to do.
I think I've seen one or two of his reviews.
They're very, very good. He's a very smart man. He made this point, and
unlike us.
I respect what?
Unlike us.
He made this point, and I respect / hate him for making it first. Basically, this is a movie that realizes that its main character will get old quick.
Yeah, that's my concern when I watched the short teaser was like, is this cartoonish thing gonna sustain a 90-minute movie?
So on the surface, I think Deadpool as a character would get old, even though Ryan Reynolds is brilliant in it.
He kills it.
But what they do is kind of clever, in my opinion, because you're right. It's they purposely make this sort of like cookie cutter superhero, like down to like there's a freeway fight and a basement fight and a junkyard fight. Like it's all these like cheap locations, and they never sort of strive for greatness, which would let you sort of live in this like, oh, it's okay that this is all hokey sort of space. Because the second you make it like real, like if you try to give this an Avengers polish and you throw Deadpool onto it, I think it would not work as well. So you have this super core, it's the core hero story, bland villain, rescue girl nonsense. Yeah. And Deadpool knows he's a part of it. And I think it works better that it is so baseline. Where I will sort of, and actually, so let's actually, before we continue on, and then you can make a point, but that's pretty much what we'd say before Spoiler Town. Yeah. Not that anything in this movie,
there's nothing going to surprise you.
You know what would be more spoilery is sort of the in-jokes and references that we will be referencing past this point. Like the plot is pretty cookie cutter. You'd be able to guess it.
Yeah. There's probably only one major spoiler that comes in the after credit scene.
Right.
That's the only major spoiler, and we'll give that away in the spoilers if it even matters.
Which is now happening now. So Shahir, continue your thought.
You actually made the same point about Star Wars: The Force Awakens, that a film, like you felt it was, and correct me if I'm paraphrasing. If
I wouldn't remember.
Incorrectly
I was so drunk during that podcast.
Oh God. That it was smart of J.J. Abrams to make a version of The Force Awakens that was so similar to A New Hope.
Smart in its safety, yes.
Smart in its safety. And I can see the validity of what you just said more for Deadpool than I did than for The Force Awakens because of the things that you set up to begin with, which was that how difficult it was to get this character made, how much the studio fought back, and how hard it is to get an R-rated superhero character into the world today.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all very true, and I think from a producing standpoint, the way they made this film is smart but lacks ambition.
Well, let me tell you a little story.
Okay, story time.
48 Hours, I read this in an article recently because I've been eating up everything I can about this movie. Like, I love it. I love the movie. You know what's interesting about this? I'll tell you straight up right now. I love the story of this movie getting made more than I love this movie's story.
Sure.
48 hours or something along the lines, the producers and Ryan Reynolds, before the 48 hours before they had the paperwork and they had to sign it and say, like, we're making this movie.
Right.
The studio came to them and said, oh, by the way, cut $7 million out of your budget.
Sure. Yeah. And I can, like from what you're saying, I can certainly see the budgetary restrictions that would corner you into making a movie this way.
Right. So they had 48 hours to figure out how they were going to take this story and make it and still make it viable, which I think is a lot of reasons why the origin story is told the way it is. Sort of, it's basically two huge action scenes with a tiny one in the middle that you keep flashing forward and back sort of to until the third act, which plays out in chronological time.
Right.
And again, that works, I think, in Wade Wilson's sort of fourth wall breaking. It sort of works that he's narrating while speaking to you. But regardless. So, like, one of the big things, for instance, that they referenced were like the whole like him near the end when he's going to finally rescue his girlfriend at the junkyard or whatever, and he gets all of the guns out of his apartment and then he forgets the bag of guns in the cab. In the cab, yeah. That I think was one of those like budgetary constrictions,
right?
Like,
yeah, because you don't have enough money to do a big gun shootout. Yeah.
So I think in the end, if their baseline was to make this sort of like knowingly craft this as a average sort of story.
Yeah.
And they even said it too in the article, and I kind of agree. Like, cutting $7 million out probably helped them.
Sure.
In a weird way. And,
like everything you're saying, again, I can kind of agree with, and I can see the decisions that were made to get this film to screen. And if you're believing any of the marketing and the story behind it, which, again, I have no reason not to, it certainly all makes sense. Like these are the kinds of decisions you have to make. It's a miracle that the film made it to screen.
Yeah.
In the first place. That said, it's not a particularly interesting movie. He's an interesting character, and I think here's the thing that got me excited. There's one moment in that little pitch reel that they did that got me really excited for this movie. And that was when Deadpool was sitting on top of the freeway and he's listening to, I think it was Hollaback by
Bananas.
Banana.
Yes.
And he's drawing a picture of like this little crayon drawing. And then what happens, and this doesn't happen in the movie, but this happens in the little pitch reel, is that he goes through the fight sequence and then the SUV that he's in flips over and then he pops his head out the window holding the drawing that he drew 5 minutes earlier. And it's of him cutting the head off the person they're flying over. And what I was excited about was that is breaking the fourth wall in a really interesting way. It's as though Deadpool is not only breaking the fourth wall directly to us, he's controlling the narrative in an interesting and compelling.
Oh, you're treating him like a god character in that sort of sense.
I'm saying that he has the capacity to break the fourth wall in interesting ways.
Right.
What happens in this film is he just breaks the fourth wall by talking to the audience and talking about how silly some of the things are that are happening. And my problem with that isn't that it's not that it's clever, not that it's not entirely clever. Mm-hmm. Some of this, like again, the writing on his character's part is really good. It's that I don't see what the purpose of it is, and I don't think it does anything interesting. And then the other side of it is that if this movie is trying to be subversive, which I think, Deadpool as a character is a subversive character.
Sure.
he's inverting an established order. The established order that they're trying to subvert here is the Marvel superhero film that this movie is clearly a part of and is setting him up to become a part of. And so it becomes a very inside joke kind of thing where they're basically like, they're not subverting narrative, they're not subverting character expectations, they're just subverting the genre that they're actually in and want to be a part of. Like, it's not like Watchmen, for example, which as a film, I don't think is a great film, but it's a great work of art as a book, which is...
I think it's a pretty great film. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, we can talk. I mean, it's a side note on Watchmen. It's a very accurate representation of that book, but I don't think that book translates very well to film. But
agree to disagree.
Yeah. Watchmen tries to entirely subvert the superhero form and what superheroism is about. Deadpool, what is it trying to subvert?
Deadpool's not trying to subvert anything. I think that's the problem that you're having with it. Deadpool's not trying to subvert anything. Deadpool is making fun of a thing. That's not subversion. That's poking fun. Like Watchmen is totally supposed to be like, make you think about why these stories are so stupid and then, like this whole thing. Yeah. This is just like, ha ha ha, look at the dumbness. Like there is a difference.
Yeah.
And the thing about, I think you said you found, what was the first sentence you said? Something about you didn't find this movie interesting. You found Deadpool interesting, but you didn't find, what was it exactly?
I think if it wasn't for Deadpool being in this movie, this was definitely a C- movie.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But I think they play it sort of smart. You're talking about like the whole Marvel sort of world building thing. I don't think Deadpool is ever going to fit back into the Marvel. Well, first of all, Fox owns, that's the whole Fox X-Men side.
Thing. Yeah, and it's
that's never coming back.
But it's weird that they spend a lot of time in this movie trying to push Deadpool into the X-Men.
I don't think they do. I think they realized they pushed X-Men into Deadpool. Like, I don't think the next movie, I don't think after Apocalypse, the next X-Men movie is going to have Deadpool unless it's a cameo.
Right.
And I don't think, but I do think the next Deadpool movie will have the X-Men cable, which the after credit sequence talks about how it's going to, basically, he does a Ferris Bueller impression.
Yeah, which is, the great fourth wall breaking movie.
Which is so, that's the great part about this movie. I know I'm getting sidetracked. Is there's so many moments, not all fourth wall breaking, but in this one, it broke the fourth wall like 4 times in the face.
Yeah,
like it's referencing another movie that broke the fourth wall. Like there's, it's one of those situations where you can take as much of that as you want from it, or just take as little. But the Deadpool movie is like, there's going to be a sequel. It's been greenlit. It made the most money opening for a Thursday or Friday night R-rated film ever. Like,
let's talk about R ratings in a minute, but continue.
Sure. Yeah. They're gonna put more side X-Men characters in Deadpool movies, but I don't think they're ever going to put Deadpool too much in X-Men because Deadpool, in order to work, again, needs Colossus. He needs Negasonic Warhead, Teenage Warhead, or whatever.
Are those characters in the X-Men Apocalypse movie coming out?
Colossus might be, but I don't know. Negasonic Teenage Warhead is not, because she's like a C-list trainee character, and I'm not super familiar with her.
Right,
but you need these characters to play off of Deadpool, otherwise it's gonna get old quick. You need and Colossus is there to sort of be like, this is how superheroes are supposed to be, Deadpool, and then you have eat a dick, Colossus. Like that's the playoff. Otherwise, he's telling everyone to eat a dick, and you don't give a shit.
Yeah, like he's a character that gets old very quickly.
And again, I hate that I'm paraphrasing Movie Bob again because he made all these fucking points that I wanted to make. But he's like, Negasonic Teenage Warhead is the quintessential character that's already sick of Deadpool's shit.
Right.
Like, she's tweeting, she doesn't give a fuck about what he's doing, doesn't give a crap about his like late 90s bullshit.
Yeah.
So, like, to put a character in the movie that automatically doesn't like your main character on principle.
Listen, I think that what you just described is potentially true. I don't know, but this film, if you were just taking it on the actual, what's actually happening on the film itself, it seems like it's really trying to push Deadpool into the X-Men universe. Like,
I disagree.
Two characters come in who say you should join the X-Men, and then the final joining of forces is on the basis that if you guys help me out, maybe I'll join the X-Men.
Right. And again, I think he'll pop in as a cameo. I don't think, because think about the last couple X-Men movies in particular have been straightforward serious. And you throw Deadpool into that for more than 5 minutes, and it's going to break your fucking movie.
Yeah, the question I had was, how is this going to work?
I do think that unlike sort of the Batman v Superman, throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks.
Yeah.
I do think that Fox has done a good enough job with the X-Men films to know better.
Yeah.
And again, you're saying like the fourth wall breaking didn't really work for you in this movie because you wanted something sort of like the fourth wall breaking that you're sort of doing is you wanted him to reference that he knows that he's in his own story. He doesn't really do that.
He says it at the beginning, yeah, but he doesn't do
there's
anything.
There's not little things that and I get that.
Yeah.
But like things that I loved were fourth wall breaking that had nothing to do with so much story, but as referencing things in real life. Like when he goes to the X-Men mansion for that time, he's like, wow, this is such a big mansion, but there's only 2 of you. It's almost as if the movie didn't have enough money to greenlight more characters.
And again, that's what I mean by like the subversion that the fourth wall breaking does is kind of a very inside
so that brings up, it's all inside baseball.
Yeah.
And that is something that I truly wonder. I wrote a line in my notes, try to think about going into this movie blind. Like,
well, I know someone who did, and I want to call out that person right now. Like, someone
is that you?
No, we're talking about these R ratings just earlier. So I'm sorry to interrupt your thought.
No, we can come back.
I'll just make. This
I know this has been on the tip of your tongue.
Because this really ruined my experience of the movie.
I'm sorry, buddy.
But I went to this movie on a midday on a Saturday, and like there's an explicit montage of sex that happens, and I was watching that kind of thinking it was kind of mildly amusing, and then a mother walks past holding hands with her like presumably under 10-year-old girl, and I thought, oh, I guess this mother just figured out that we're in an R-rated movie, and she probably this is maybe not the most appropriate thing for an under 10-year-old girl. Then she comes back, and I realized what had actually happened was the mother had just taken the girl to the bathroom and brought her back for the rest of the movie. And all I could think about for the rest of the movie while watching decapitations, blood splattering, dick jokes, sex scenes, everything being thrown at the wall in a sort of gleeful 12-year-old way was that there's a 10-year-old, I think under 10-year-old girl sitting somewhere behind me watching this. And I just, if you're a parent and you take your kid to see this movie, you are a terrible parent.
Yeah. No, I can't argue with you with that. But something that first and foremost, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
No questions asked. This is not a movie for kids.
If your kid is potentially someone who could watch, you think is mature enough to watch something like this and understand meta-narrative, that's fine. Do it at home.
Right. Here's the thing that this is my only counterpoint. It's not even a counterpoint. That mother is a bad parent in my opinion and whatever. Like this is going to be the difference. Are you ready? If you bring your under 10-year-old kid to go see Deadpool, you're a fucking piece of shit. I don't care if you couldn't get a sitter. I don't care if whatever. But there's this magical age of like 14 or 15, right? Where you sneak in to go see a movie like this unbeknownst to your parents.
Yeah, and I think I certainly did that.
And this movie's made for that. Like this movie, no matter what the rating is made. It's an R.
This is a movie made for 12 to 14-year-old boys trying to rebel against the system.
And God bless it, because I know there's 2 sides to it. One might be like, oh well, I don't think this woman did this, but maybe the woman talked to her kid about what Deadpool was. Like
maybe I'm just a judgmental prick.
Probably not. So, but like, it's this. I don't know. Like, I have this talk with my friends a lot about like, remember back in the day when you were young and like you were kind of in trouble. Like, again, I didn't drink till I was 22 or do anything like that, but a lot of my friends did. So I was still in the action of like, oh fuck, what if we get caught?
Yeah.
Drinking in the woods, dodging the cops, or like they're smoking fucking whatever and like doing this stuff, like all these little infractions that now are in your late 20s.
I think you were going to go real dark on that. Like that time we murdered a hobo.
And it was black tar heroin all up in our eyeballs. No, but like there's something about like that whole like getting caught by your parents or by the law for like tiny infractions that is part, in my opinion, of growing up.
Yes, certainly. And I'm like, for me, it was like sneaking in to see Pulp Fiction.
Right.
When I was too young.
This is the same thing. Yeah. Now, granted, Pulp Fiction is a much more brilliant film than Deadpool.
Yeah. But
it's the same feeling. It's the same feeling a kid's going to get by getting into this movie and thinking that they've subverted the system.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. I think you can see the appeal that this film will have for 12 to 16-year-old boys.
Yeah. And the 12 to 16-year-old boy minds that still exist in a ton of adults.
Yeah, certainly.
Like, again, I don't want, I want to make this very clear. I don't want Deadpool type things all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But if I go and watch like a bunch of serious movies and even the more mainstream Marvel, their own studio action movies and like, and then like even go back to like, you know, Oscar noms and all that shit. Like, yeah, like I go back to my sort of thing. I want the whole color palette of film, and I'm glad that this exists in its sort of state.
But it's not a good movie.
I think it is a good movie.
Right.
Because I enjoyed the fuck out of it.
Right.
But like, again, it's one of those things where if you tear it apart, if you go beyond, yes, I can 100% right now, I could prove to you definitively that it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Except for my visceral emotional response to it, that I loved it.
Yeah.
So is it then like on a but even like let's break it down this way because this is interesting. On a technical, let's not talk storytelling. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
On a technical level, is it a bad movie? Now, I'm not saying it did anything to break. It didn't like make any visual leaps or audible things, but like special effects were tight. All the shots were composed very well. The color palette was nice. I liked the sets. Like, I liked the bar.
The only fault I would say on a technical level, and it's a minor, is I felt occasionally it suffered from the fight sequence being indecipherable syndrome, which, you know, like there was a couple of moments where I was like
in the junkyard.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, I wish this was choreographed and photographed in a way where I could really enjoy the impact of what was happening.
It's funny because that scene, and again, you can see where the money is on the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
The first scene on the highway is so beautiful. Yeah. And that last scene is just like action sequence.
Yeah, exactly. Also, but that's a minor, you know, like.
And I didn't know.
It's not terrible.
No, and I still don't know. They were in the junkyard, but there was almost like a big helicarrier looking thing, and I have no clue what that was supposed to be. Is that supposed to be a nod to a helicarrier?
Somebody did point out on the internet that it is like a reference to the Avengers, but it makes no sense as to why he's on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that.
Like this is where I get to the bad movie moment. It has to do with, you know, why I call out a lot of Marvel movies is like the villain is he's just a thing on screen that's there to, like, you know, push against the. Of course. And it's got no.
But here's I'm going to go back to sort of why I think this is still a good movie.
Yeah.
If a movie lives and dies sort of, so technically it's still a good movie. Not a great movie, but a good movie.
I can't fault it.
Okay. Yeah. So now let's go from a storytelling perspective, which on the surface, if we describe what we've just done and we say that it's sort of very cookie cutter and blah, 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 like, yeah, you know what? It's just like, meh, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
But it does something in the opening credits that I find, again, I'm so big on movies following their own rules.
Right. Yeah.
It sets up in the opening credits, not giving anyone's names, but calling them like starring the most handsome man alive. Yeah. Directed by some asshat.
Yeah.
Starring generic British villain. Like
written by the real heroes here.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so things like that set up to me exactly what to expect. I didn't know anything about the villain going into Deadpool, but I knew it would be generic and just a reason for Deadpool to do stuff.
Yeah.
And the movie itself tells you that in the first 2 minutes, so I can't fault it on the story content. But we'll get to structure. Yeah. Because I think that's important. That's a difference. Story content, yes, it's generic, but it told me it's going to be generic and it's going to poke fun at its genericness, and I'm going to have a good time with it. I
think that's a really good point, and I think that the setup that it does is a smart way of handling.
It's crucial.
It's crucial to, like, but it's kind of like pointing out. It's kind of, I completely agree with what you're saying, but it is kind of like saying, we made this thing, it's kind of shitty. Ha ha.
But that sequence in the beginning was not an apology. That was a setup for it. They knew that going in. I guarantee you in the script it says that.
Right.
Like that to me didn't feel like oh fuck, we made an hour and a half of garbage. Better make it silly.
I think that works, but that opening is so tied into what the character is. So I think it works for, I do agree. I think it's a great opening sequence and it works.
Yes. And it primes.
I don't think it necessarily negates how average the rest of the film is.
I think it does. Really? I really do. I think it just sets my expectations to the perfect level.
Right.
I
can totally see that.
It's like a reset. It's like you're power cycling something and you're back to zero. Like, because you go in, because I went in like, I'm gonna love the fuck out of this.
Yeah.
And then, but like that's my little kid brain, and my adult brain's like thinking, I can't stand Deadpool for a fucking hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then that barometer, it like set it back, and they're like, it just sort of was like, just sit back and try to enjoy this. This is what you're about to watch.
Yeah.
Now, story structure.
It does a interesting, I mean, and again, like seeing the, it's that thing about seeing the writing, on the screen, and you can see why they set up the structure that way, which is that if they didn't, you wouldn't see Deadpool for about 30 minutes into the film.
Right.
So doing it, they have this sort of flashback structure that opens, that runs for about 40 minutes into the film, but what it does offer you the opportunity is to see Deadpool in the first few frames and to have a scene with Deadpool in the first few frames.
And you get endeared. I'm trying to look at this from a person that knows nothing at all. Like literally, let's take like, for instance, a guy who brings his date to Deadpool.
Yeah.
And they even referenced that at one point in the character.
You thought this was going to be a...
Wait, my boyfriend said this was a superhero movie, but that guy turned that other guy into a fucking kebab.
Yeah.
You have Deadpool in the cab.
Sorry, just that line there is an example of a line. Did that make you laugh?
No, but only because I'd seen it in the trailers 5 times.
Okay.
Again, I don't.
It's weird to me because that's a good line.
Sure. And comedy. Having worked in a lot of comedy on television, I can call myself a
comedian.
Not a comedian, but I kind of know. There's differences to jokes when you put them on a screen in a story or in any sort of thing that someone else is going to be watching on a movie or television sort of style.
Yeah.
There's obviously the jokes that'll gut bust you, make you laugh out loud. And that's what the things that people consider jokes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's probably a comedy term for this, but like there's the lines that you even said, like, that's funny.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be a ha 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 line. So I call those sort of like the through lines of comedy or the undercurrent of a comedy. Whereas
you need enough of them to build up to let you hit the
fucking
big
high notes and keep you from going down to Serious Town.
Yeah.
No one wants to go down to Serious Town in Deadpool.
Yeah.
So that line did not make me laugh.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of like another one of those versions that sort of did. I keep thinking of ones that didn't. For instance, like if you guys haven't seen 127 Hours, this is going to be a spoiler when he has to cut off his own hand to do that. He says that. That's not me warning you about a spoiler. Deadpool tells the audience that. A lot of the jokes, what was actually very funny? I got to remember the guy's name, Silicon Valley guy, TJ Miller. Yeah. His best friend, I think his name's Weasel or something like that.
It's weird because it was that thing where like on paper that joke is funny and it kind of like it works when you watch that joke.
Which joke?
Your face looks like an avocado had sex with an older, uglier avocado, or you look like Freddy Krueger. That's a funny joke when you watch it out of context. But in context, it kind of doesn't land.
I liked him. Like basically,
he's good in the film.
I think a lot of the Deadpool jokes that worked best for me was when he was interacting with other characters and they had banter. Those is when I really laughed. Or if there was a niche piece of nerd sort of culture that happened that I really enjoyed and laughed at.
Yeah.
Another thing. So I don't want to get lost too much. So story structure, I get why they did it, and I think it was a smart move.
It's a smart move, yeah.
So I think that works too.
Yeah.
Acting, I think across the board, everyone hit their marks. Ryan Reynolds obviously steals the show, but I can never pronounce her name, and she's lovely. Yeah. Morena Baccarin.
You will know her from Homeland if you watch Homeland,
and you'll know her from fucking Firefly.
Yeah.
She's wonderful, and I don't know. She's obviously beautiful, but she is so well cast against Reynolds in this. Like, I've never seen her have what seems like so much fun.
She's age appropriate for Reynolds as well, right?
Yeah.
She's like actually around the age. So it's like, it kind of like, I actually really appreciated and enjoyed that.
And this is something that I found so interesting because I did not expect this. They made jokes about it being like a love story. At its weird core, it kind of is. And I don't know. I mean, the writing is clever enough around them where that could be the case and they always sort of plan for it. But the chemistry between Reynolds and her is really genuine. And like,
I would say they perform well.
That felt to me way more real than I was expecting.
It didn't land.
Well, here's the thing. The beginning of the movie, because it even credited her as some hot chick or something. So like that, I will say the fact that it worked better cinematically than I think they even meant it to.
Yeah.
that threw me out a little bit of this super fun happy time place that we're having. And now I don't know, because I wouldn't want to change that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I don't know if you can hear sirens, but Deadpool's probably causing some shit in the background. Hello, city.
He's on my naughty list.
Yeah. But like, so that to me was when it was inching towards a better movie. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's dangerous. Like, don't do that, Deadpool, because I don't want, like, I didn't want, this is a weird sentence, I didn't want the movie to reach for greatness.
Right.
Like, I wanted it to be what it was. And I do think at the end, the hints of the romance actually being something realistic, and dysfunctional, but realistic.
Yeah.
Help it. But that was the one moment that I was kind of like, oh, this is weird that this is working.
I think the, like, for me, it didn't necessarily land because her character is given so little to do, but I think the chemistry between them is genuine enough for you to go, I believe that she misses him.
Yes.
You know, I believe that his leaving her, you know, has an impact on her.
And one thing, I feel like I've been just jizzing all over this movie, and I'm like, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. I didn't like the ending. The ending was kind of a non-ending, generic ending, like she's fine with them being fucked up and like everything's cool. And I get it.
I mean, that was a funny line though. Like, well, that certainly is a face that I'd like to sit on.
Yeah,
you know, with
like,
enough drinks that I'd like to sit on. That's funny.
And also, I mean, actually, you want to know one of the jokes that I laughed fucking audibly and heavily at was when she finally takes his mask off and he's stapled a picture of Hugh Jackman to his face. That had me rolling.
Yeah, but they. And I like that because that's a callback to the opening scene of the film where he talks about being in a film with Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
And then, you know, C to the fact that he was in a film with Hugh Jackman. Yeah. But I didn't laugh as much as I was kind of like, you know, like, I get why you're doing this joke and I get why you're saying this, but it's not that funny. And it's
I don't know. I thought it was really funny. I don't know. I mean,
you know what part of it that really worked for me was when, like, they're having a moment later on and she has to pull the staple out of his chin.
Right.
You know, like that's good. That's good. Like,
well, let's put it this way,
as far as joke writing goes, that's good. Like, keeping up with a bit.
Sure.
You know.
And I think, you know, you and I intrinsically, I think, experience humor differently. You hating fun.
Yeah, of course.
And me generally liking fun. But no, in all seriousness, like, I do think that's where this movie kind of shines in a way, is like, if you can get on board in the beginning, and that's a big if, it sets you up, but if this isn't your cup of tea, you're going to be like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah.
It does have enough of different comedy. Like, it's a lot of suck a dick Colossus and just butts and all that shit. But it also has funny little moments, like, in there too, like that staple thing, like a lot of the stuff with his blind elderly roommate.
And I will say it's remarkable from a writing point of view that they sustain the level of joke writing, that they never like fall apart. Like I you know, a film that I was kind of always disappointed by was Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like Kick-Ass was kind of like, hey, you know, this is what a real superhero is like. And then by the end of the film, they were like back into like crazy superhero territory. And it didn't quite.
They had a jetpack.
Yeah, it didn't quite sustain itself.
Yeah.
Whereas this film, as much as I think that it is cookie cutter and generic, it does sustain a level of humor. It doesn't like fall apart. You know, like it like you say, it sets up where it's going to go and it goes there.
Yeah.
I guess
it never lies to you.
It never lies to you. And you know, like, we've had this discussion a couple of times before where you've talked about where you get frustrated when a film is so potentially good that when it kind of misses the mark, it pisses you off more than when a film, you know, isn't as good, you know. And to me, the thing is that Deadpool is so good and Ryan Reynolds is so good that I got annoyed by the potential of this film to like really break beyond the pack of movies that it's competing against. You know, the Marvel world, the DC world. I thought this is the movie that can really because I wasn't as big a fan of Watchmen. I thought, I wonder if this movie can do what Watchmen really wanted to do.
Interesting.
And it's not. The problem is that maybe it's the producer director had of me going, if this movie had an ounce of ambition beyond what it delivers, it could have been amazing. But it's kind of like, you know, it coasts by. It's a film that coasts by on its charisma, on its writing. And I'm not saying those are bad things. They do those things very, very well. And it is a miracle that this film exists. But it doesn't go beyond that. And it does, for a film that is poking so much fun at other movies, it doesn't take any steps to distance itself from other movies. It's kind of like, the other film I remember that was Swordfish with Hugh Jackman and John Travolta, where they open the film, not really breaking the fourth wall, but it has a monologue about how shitty Dog Day Afternoon is. Mm-hmm. And then they just proceed to make a shitty movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of that thing is, if you're going to take these pot shots, I would love it if you could go that far, but obviously the studio system that created this movie isn't going to sustain that. It's no Fight Club. That's fine. Not everything needs to be Fight Club.
I think I could see going into this thinking you wanted it to be what Watchmen was promised to you as, could become this off as a disappointment. But again, I do have to go back to
that opening titles.
I mean, opening titles and just everything sort of like, and I'd kept an eye on this film. I think the opening titles are a great primer for anyone else kind of coming into the movie to set up exactly what it is. I said that before.
Yeah.
But also, again, I don't think, sure, anything can be made better. Yeah. But I think, and I go back to the sort of love story working a little too well in this thing as an example.
Yeah.
The second you start raising something in this movie beyond its means is really where I think the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah. It requires a very deft hand to, it's not a technical hand that does that. It's the kind of filmmaking that you get from a David Fincher.
And sure, is it possible? Absolutely. Is it probable? Not so much. So I'm really glad that they made the choices that they made here, keeping it consistently what they promised, keeping it consistently enjoyable. I don't think and I truly believe this, I don't think that they set out to turn the world of superheroes on its head. I think that's a little bit of the marketing, and not even that much. I think that's just sort of the inference that people took from the marketing.
Yeah.
They never promised that this was going to be like the answer to superhero movies. It was just like, this is a wacky character in this world.
Yeah, it's a live action Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Oh,
is what you're saying.
100%.
With blood.
Yes, there will be blood.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other moments that really, really hit me. I do want to give playing off of the Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I do think that Colossus, if I have a criticism, is hitting it for the cheap seats with the you need to be regular superhero and it's so good to do whatever.
He's like you said, he's the counterpoint.
He's a straight man.
He's not even the straight man. He's the counterpoint that Deadpool can make fun of.
Right. Yeah, of course. And again, I think that
I guess the difficulty with this film as well is the bad guy superhero kind of thing that I'm trying to think of the other not Kick-Ass, but what's the other film which is these are not the good guys, these are the other guys. Oh God, I'm going blank right now.
I don't know. Continue your thought.
Yeah, but basically the idea you could even see it coming out with Suicide Squad coming out soon. It's this attempt to make sure that to balance the heroic with the with the evilness. And the thing is I didn't really see the bad guy side of Deadpool ever through this film, except in one scene, which I thought it wasn't like showing that he was a bad guy, but it was a really fun scene.
The cab?
In the cab, when they realize that there's a guy that's being kidnapped in the backseat of the cab.
Yeah, so the cabbie that drives him to the first scene of the movie is the one that Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead and him take to the end fight of the movie, and Deadpool gave him some advice about dealing with his brother who stole his girlfriend. Yeah. And it turns out that the cabbie now has that brother in the trunk of the cab.
And he goes, "Oh, I'm so disappointed. You shouldn't have done this. I'm so proud of you."
Yeah.
You should take him home and let him free. Kill him.
Yeah.
And then you should win over your loved one's heart with your charm and good looks. Kidnap her.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to see more of that. That playful, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy kind of thing? Which I think is fun. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just this sort of, double-sided sword that I know that if they do that, you could lose a lot more people than you lost with this film.
Right. And if you do that, I would have liked to see more moments like that, but it's funny, since this, I bet you we'll see more moments like that when it's him and Cable in the sequel, because this movie, if you think about it, at its core, it's still a guy going through hell trying to get back to his girlfriend, even though
he's a good guy, even though he says he's a bad guy.
Yeah,
he's not a bad guy in this movie. He's a good guy through and through.
I think the way they set him up in the very beginning with the pizza man and all that stuff is very smart.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a smart, like, but when he says I'm not a good guy, like he even says the line, you're my hero, and he goes, that's where you're wrong. I was like, you kind of are. You didn't kill.
But I think Deadpool in this movie, and although in the comics
he is a little bit more of a bad guy.
Well, no, it's funny. In the comics, he always thinks he's a hero. So,
right.
I mean, he never doesn't. He basically, from my understanding, he always goes out waving the superhero flag, like I'm totally a superhero.
Yeah.
Even though he fucking murders and kills people and basically just does stuff for money.
Right.
In this one, it was an interesting thing. Now that you bring it up, how he was so avert to being called a hero, and I think that, on a storytelling standpoint, is to make him seem more heroic than he is.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not taking the mantle. Whereas it would get old if, while he's slaughtering these people, he's like, I'm the best superhero there is.
Yeah.
Because I think that was actually a smart move on their part to water that sort of like bit of him down. Because his story is a revenge story again.
Yeah, and it's very simplistic. And
sure.
But there are even parts of it that I was very confused by. Like I was confused by his powers.
Interesting.
I was confused by what his so he had his mutant capabilities were activated through a process of torture.
Yep.
I didn't understand why his skin was all burnt in that deoxygen process.
And they don't make it very clear. And again, there's some stuff in this movie you're not going to get if you don't know the Marvel universe, and or the X-Men universe in particular. And that's the movie's fault, I would say. But at the same time, I don't know if I would have liked if it would have helped with me being like, and your skin turned this way because of this. Like, I just don't care. I
didn't understand what had happened.
What happened was his mutant genes were activated.
Yeah.
And that, meaning he's for all intents and purposes, invincible and can never die. He's immortal.
Right.
But in his skin, in the mutant changing process, that's what his skin really looks like. It's the same thing. It's almost like, okay, so X-Men, when they go through it in teenage years, their mutant power emerges. It's a metaphor for puberty.
Yeah.
So a lot of them aren't human anymore, really.
Yeah.
Like Nightcrawler can teleport like a motherfucker, but he's all fucking blue and has a devil tail.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a lot of like in the X-Men universe, there's a lot of trade-off. You get this great ability,
but you get a shitty thing.
You're this super strong acrobatic thing, but now you're covered in blue fur.
I also didn't see how that. Now I understood he was a mercenary and he was a soldier at some point.
Yes,
but at some point in this film, he became a katana wielding flipbot. And I was like, is that part of his power, or was he just really good with a knife beforehand?
I think he was good with knives beforehand. Like he does the knife with the pizza guy,
but he just holds a knife with the pizza guy. He kind of comes out.
It does not. Look, it doesn't set up. Again, it doesn't set up like why he's good with swords or why he's good at what he does or why he's.
I'm just saying, like, it was sort of from a storytelling point of view. If you're coming into this character cold, when you're saying, oh, he's a superhero now, or he's got like these powers now, you're just saying he's got powers now, and we're not really sure what those powers are.
I mean, they do spell out that he's invincible. They do actually.
I mean, I see him with a bullet, going with a bullet, and he cuts off his own hand.
When he
when he gets
when he's like, not only did I become immune to L cancer, I became immune to L everything.
Right.
And they bring up a little bit how he can never die a couple times, and that's fine.
Yeah.
As far as his skill level, I'm just taking it as he's a badass mercenary. He's proven he's a badass mercenary in a couple scenes. I'll take it that he's a badass mercenary.
Yeah, but he's also like superhuman badass. Like now he's like jumping into cars and
only ninja level though. He's not like super strength or like any of that shit.
Well, he's got those as well, right? Like
he might be a little stronger. I don't know, but he doesn't like ever like punch someone across a room. He doesn't ever do any of that shit. I think also with invulnerability comes something very interesting where like he jumps down into that car.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he broke a bunch of bones doing that, but they're already healing. Like that's the sort of
like I thought the scene where he like punches Colossus and he breaks one hand, punches him when he breaks the other hand. Yeah. Those are like funny in a Bugs Bunny kind of way. It was just a little like, I'm not sure what's going on here. not a deal breaker.
No.
But it was just kind of like, oh, what is going on here?
The one guy I will say that I got confused about who his powers were and whatever was Ajax.
Yeah. It's like, well, this is the problem with he's a worthless villain. And it's like
100%.
He's like, and the problem is the film kind of hinges itself around.
But picture, I just want to say this. Picture a villain you would have liked to spend more time with in this movie. Does that take away from Deadpool then?
Maybe you're right.
I think it kind of does.
It kind of does, but then could the film be more internal to like Deadpool's actual conflict, like about good and bad? Could the film be more about that?
I think the next one is going to be. I think because this one has to be about getting the girl back and saving his former love, and the next one is going to be all zany hijinks. Anyway,
so I just on that note, the next one, I sent you an article this week from The Guardian about unfinished endings. Did you read that?
I didn't.
I'm
sorry,
you didn't do your homework, Matt.
Oh no, I skimmed it. I skimmed it.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand that you don't like movies that don't end.
No, it's not that I don't like movies that don't end. I don't mind that because like I actually think like the second Hobbit movie is a surprisingly good balance of like being a complete film and setting up another film. What I have a problem with is films that set up that basically say, well, we're gonna get to the good one. We're just here to kind of like
the story of this one of Deadpool doesn't do that. It just pans out and then that's the end. And then the after credit sequence, the Ferris Bueller thing, literally just says, "Ooh, the next one he's gonna have cable and it's gonna be great." Like, so this movie, while I didn't appreciate the end, like I didn't think the ending was great, it did end.
It ends, but it's not a satisfying ending. It's not. It just kind of
a Hollywood satisfying ending. It's just an ending we've seen before. You catch the girl and everything's fine.
It's like again, it's not like I can't fault you for having a good time at this movie. Like it is a good time at the movies. It's fun. He is great.
Yeah.
I just think I'm just on the opposite side, which is like I wish there was like I wish it wasn't just a money making operation. I wish there was like some sense of let's break the mold. I
don't think that. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't think this in itself is a money making operation. I think this,
like, as much as I think Watchmen doesn't necessarily work, that's a complete story. You know what I mean? Like that's a complete, and it's a difficult story, and this
is a complete easy story.
Yeah, it's a complete easy story, and it's kind of uninteresting.
I mean. No, well, I think the characters make it all interesting.
Yeah.
The situation does not.
Yeah.
And I think that for some reason you saying it was a money-making thing just kind of sat poorly with me because I think they made this movie for people to enjoy. And yes, obviously it's a business and hopefully it makes money.
So you can make another one.
Maybe.
Yeah. But that's totally fine. We live in a commercial society. I get it. And I, like I said, I think the choices they made were smart choices.
Right.
I just,
but I think they made the movie. This is my point. I think they made the movie exactly what they wanted to make it. Right. I don't think that they ever were like, and even when they got their budget cut and all this stuff, this script has been sitting around for like 8-9 years or something, and they had to tweak it and do what they had to do. They made the best possible movie for the character that they wanted to make a movie for.
Absolutely.
And I applaud them for sticking with that. A lot of times you do get stuck in things like, how can we make this better when things are a lot of times like to keep everything as a cohesive vision, you need to keep things at certain levels sometimes.
Yeah.
And this movie, it rides its level out. And I don't know. Final thoughts here. You can give it, and then we'll.
No. I completely agree with what you're saying, and my calls for having ambitions, like you say, could derail anything. I think. I come from the
land down under.
I come from a land down under, wind blown and thunder. Sure. But what I think is, I want to see great cinema, and this is not that. This is a Happy Meal, and it's a good Happy Meal, and a Happy Meal works for certain reasons, and Happy Meals have more popularity than burgers from a gastropub.
Sure.
I don't know why we're using food analogies all the time these days.
We're just hungry.
Yeah, we're just hungry. But so on the one hand, my calls for having ambition are, in a genre that I think lacks it sometimes, like in this particular genre of superhero films, I think lacks greater scope and ambition. And it would be nice to like see a film that isn't just going for a franchise. Like they even high five in this movie, that's a franchise, and it's a great intro. It works. I get it. Totally fine. Not a deal breaker. You will enjoy this movie, but it's a movie for the frontal lobe of your brain, not necessarily the spinal cord of your brain or the rear parts of your brain. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It is what it is. I hope. Will I go see the second one? I think.
I'll make you.
You'll make me go see the second one, sure. But like, if they do this again, I'm out.
Right.
I don't
think
that's the
they
thing.
will.
Yeah.
I think they'll do something a little bit different. 2 points just at the end. Just first of all, I think if you haven't gotten at this point, of course you should fucking see this. This is an amazing sort of fun time at the movies. I think Shahir is correct in the sense that it is a frontal lobe sort of movie, but also if you do pay attention to it and you're in this sort of comic book world, if you breathe this stuff, there's a lot more than frontal lobe for you. Right. But if you don't, there's not.
Yeah.
So just know that going in. Also, I will agree, going back to the food Happy Meal analogy, yes, this is 100% a Happy Meal. But I want you to hearken back, dear listener, to your childhood. And, McDonald's was always sort of special when I was growing up, like, because I didn't get it all that often and whatever, and you get the Happy Meal. But the Happy Meal, like, for instance, even back then, I think that was the first time I realized that even though a fast food chain or something that you get consistently, it's supposed to be the same tasting every time, depending on where you went or what time of day or what you ordered. You either got lucky or unlucky based on like what you sort of got. Like it would always be sort of the same, but every once in a while, you got that magical fucking Happy Meal that not only came with the exact toy 1 out of 12 that you really wanted, but also it just was like everything was fresh. The fries were directly out of the fucking fryer. The burger just tasted like extra good for some reason. Maybe they fucked up on the sauce ratio. I don't know. Yeah. And like you hadn't had a soda in like a month. Yeah. So like that to me is this Happy Meal. Yeah. It's this Happy Meal is, I'm sure Deadpool would love hearing me say this, filling a hole
in your dead heart.
in my heart. And I think that I'm glad it exists. I'm glad there's a place for it. And is it a beacon of pure cinematic gold? No, but it's a beacon of having a fucking grand old time, and especially like something to talk about and sort of have fun with your friends with.
Yeah.
So that's Deadpool, and this was the only podcast about it.
Yeah. Nobody's talking about
No one's talking about this movie. Shahir, where can people find you?
People can find me at shahirdaud.com, SHAHIRDAUD, which you can see all my work and music videos and films and my Twitters and stuff in there. We've got a cool music video coming out in a couple of months' time featuring robots.
Robots!
We love hearing from you guys.
Yes.
So please email us in with your thoughts about Deadpool at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. We will read them out on the air and we will debate further. And at our Twitter handle at onlymoviepod. We also have a Facebook page, which Matt tells me we look at often, and I agree.
There you go. Okay, you can find me at Emperor MSK on Twitter, Skeletor the number 4 PREZ on Instagram, at www.mattthewkrol.com for my life and works. Yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening. And
Toasty.
Wow, really? You're gonna do the Toasty guy from Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Totally derailed me there. But guys, thank you so much for listening again, and we will see you on the other side
of the movies.
What would that be? The boring, like the back
yeah, no, you don't want to stand by because it'll hurt
because
your
everything
eyes.
will be reversed.
No, it'll hurt your eyes when you're looking at the projector.
Nothing good ever happens behind a movie screen.
Well, you could have sex back there.
Oh,
yeah.